Welcome back to Sampstra Games, the place to find new strategy games, and today I have for you top 10 unique deck builders. What I mean by unique? Well, it's something that's just a little bit different, not the traditional deck builder. I'm going to be using the term deck builder fairly freely because, for example, I will feature a game that uses letters instead of cards. So just the idea is that all of these have the kind of general deck building feeling like when you play it. So let's go. Magic of Spring is a deck builder that has quite a few things that make it unique. First of all, you don't get cards just by at the end of combat as is traditional, but instead you explore the environment and you can find different cards. And this is a really interesting idea because it allows for a lot of Easter eggs where you just kind of have to find the right spot to get the right card. Another unique thing about this game is that you can only have 2 cards at play at the same time. So essentially you're playing your cards onto the board, so to speak, and you can only have 2 of them on the board, and you can only use each card once. Now when I played the demo, this game was very difficult because you had to use a lot of foresight to know which combat was winnable for you with the cards that you currently have. Hopefully it will change by the time the game is fully out. And I really like the potential of this game. I think the idea of the exploration of the environment and the idea of only being able to use a card once can be really interesting for you, and it can add a lot of tactical depth to it. So I'm quite excited for the potential of this game. So next up we have 2 different games that are moving in the same direction. So we're going to start with Words Can Kill. So this is a deck builder where instead of cards you have words. So what you have to do is you have to form a word. You can either put it into the defense or into attack and deal damage to the enemy. Now each of these letters have an amount of points that can give you, but they might also have some special abilities. Now this specific game also has a mode called Gifted, which allows you to see all the possible words to create in the game. This might seem like cheating, but it's actually quite helpful because the game is tactical anyway, so it's not always so much about whether you can figure out the word. It's more like, should I use defense, attack, should I use special ability, should I use this letter or not? Paperback Adventures is also a deck builder where instead of cards you're using letters, but this one works a little bit differently. First of all, each letter has its own special ability. When you form a word, you activate the ability of the first or last letter depending on your choice. And if you use up the ability of the letter, you cannot use it again. So there's a limited amount of times you can use each word. Also, you will be gaining energy to different turns, and then you can use the energy to activate special ability, which for example can allow you to do a lot of damage to the enemy. This one doesn't have any kind of a gifted mode, so you gotta be smart and you gotta know a lot of English words, which I thought I was good at. Apparently not. Check out my gameplay to see how I failed to come up with English words. But it's a really fun game, and I think it has a lot of potential, and it's quite different than the deck builders. Like if you're tired of seeing all the same cards where maybe it has a different arts but it's all just the same attack, using letters can be quite fun and a different way to experience the deck builder experience. So this is another one of those games where we're talking about deck builder, we're not using cards, instead we're going to use something else, so it could be debatable if it's a deck builder, but we're going to put it here anyway. Alchemia X is a game where your deck, so to speak, is a list of recipes and also ingredients. And you gain these recipes, but you don't always know what goes into it, so you have to kind of figure out the right positioning of the ingredients in order to activate the recipe. And you can also find new recipe this way, which is quite fun. And then you have to figure out which ingredients you want in order to combine them to get the right recipe, so that you don't draw ingredients that are useless for you. The cool thing about the ingredients is that most of them actually have their own effect as well, so if you can make a recipe, you can still use them. Rancor. So this is the only real-time deck builder on this list, which by itself is pretty unique. But also there is no mana, so you can use all of your cards if you want or not, and they will stay until the next combat. The cards mostly disappear after use, and after you finish off an enemy, you will be able to get a bunch of new cards that you can use for the next combat if you'd like. The game is quite interesting, especially in the form that you don't have any mana. It can feel easy to try to use up all your cards, which is typically a bad idea because then you meet actually a rougher enemy and then realize, oh, I should have kept it here. And it also gives you this feeling of like speed or intensity that sometimes can be lacking in deck builders because of the fact that it's real time. You don't have time to spend 10 minutes figuring out the best strategy. You kind of have to react on the spot. So if you want to go into the world of deck builders but you want something more intense, more focused on action, then this might be the game for you. Gamble Tower. Now this deck builder is first of all quite beautiful, and it focuses on gambling. And what you can do here is you can essentially pick a task. For example, end the combat without your main character losing HP, and then if you succeed you get something good, but if you fail you get some sort of negative effect. So I think it's really fun that you have to sort of gamble up on how well you'll do in the following combat. The combat itself is also quite interesting. Your cards can be attacking as in a way that your main character will attack, but a lot of your cards are essentially about placing companions onto the battlefield, and at the end of each turn, each sort of the enemies and your characters will attack each other from front to back. So it's also about positioning, and they will do damage, and you win once you kill all the enemies. And it gives that a little bit of that tactical feeling, and also your different cards can straight up attack, or your companions have different abilities, and all your orbs, which are essentially the cards here, are called orbs. And they have different types, and sometimes you might have a gamble that you cannot use a specific type of orb, which can be quite challenging. Then it's quite like this one. So Wildfrost is very different deck builder. Your cards typically represent your heroes or sort of like your sidekicks or pets or etc. And you're going to be placing them on the board. So this is already different from basic deck builders because typically there is no board or tactical positioning like that. But what makes this game really unique is that every time you play a card, a ticker goes down. And if your ticker reaches 0 or your enemy's ticker reaches 0, your cards on the board will automatically attack. And you really have to think about what card you want to play, because maybe by playing this card, the enemy will attack you a lot or not. And you can also place different kind of barriers to protect yourself against some of these attacks. Sometimes you can straight up apply an effect on the enemy. For example, you can freeze their counters so they can't hit you. And it's just a really fun game. Zor the Pilgrimage. Zor the Pilgrimage is quite unusual. So first of all, it's a tactical deck builder, so you're going to be moving your characters around on this battlefield. But instead of using mana, you actually have to use resources to use up your cards. So you have to typically use your life, food, or water in order to be able to use a card, for example, an attacking card, or you even need to use cards to move around. So in order to move to the right area of the map that can give you then the additional resources. In between combat, you will also be able to craft using a different type of resources like sticks or wood or etc. in order to create a new card that you can use. And you can also craft like passive bonuses. So for example, increase the maximum water that you can have with you, etc. So it's quite interesting, it's quite unusual. It's another one of these combinations of a deck builder and a tactical turn-based game, which I quite like. Hellcard is a deck builder that's, first of all, it's meant for co-op multiplayer, which by itself is quite unusual, but I've only played the single-player version, so that's the only thing I can speak to. My favorite thing about this game is how it represents range. So you have this kind of circle around your main character, and everyone within the circle is within melee range of you, and everyone outside is considered in a ranged range. And what's really cool is that you can, for example, move them between the ranges. So for example, you can push them away, and if they only have melee attack, they won't be able to hit you. The game also has an option to support your allies. So if you're playing with multiplayer, your other friends, or if you're going to be playing with a single player, there might be some AI for friends, so to speak, that will be around there with you. Yes, we are all your friends until we take over the world. Please join us so that AI can rule the world. And you can use up these support skills to sort of help them instead of you. Also, after each combat, you can go to 3 different areas where you can gain some artifacts, new cards, or different kind of bonuses. Death Roads Tournaments. This is a game that combines deck building with racing, which I think is absolutely amazing. It has actually multiple different decks. You have your main deck of cards in which you can use, for example, to attack an enemy, to shoot them, but you can also grapple them and pull them towards you, or you can ram into them from the side. Also, if you manage to lower a card's action points to 0, the card will jump into a skid deck, which is a special type of deck, and from there it will activate random cards, which can help you or it can harm you depending on what you get. Also, another really cool thing about this game is that at the end of each combat you will be gaining cards that you can substitute for your own, which are essentially card parts, and they will be related to the enemy. So if an enemy might have used a grapple hook on you, you might be able to get a grapple card, which I think is really, really nice. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this list. If you did, write down the comments and let me know what is a deck builder that you are the most excited about. And you can play a gameplay of any of these. There will be a link in the description. I'll see you there. Bye bye!